Ready?
I'm ready. I'm born ready.
Okay, so this is SNC Podcast.
Episode 2.
And we have Hector from NewLeaf Comics.
That's me.
Yeah, that is you.
Where are you from?
We're from Chicago.
Yeah, good.
We're like half in Chicago, half in Colorado. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at.
Fun.
Middle America.
That's right. Less people. And so. Well, mine is Chicago. I guess Chicago's got a lot of people, but
yeah, definitely.
you can leave Chicago and get a lot less people than if we leave our cities.
True.
Okay, so you're Hector, and what do you do with NewLeaf?
Oh, that's kind of hard to say. I'm the lead artist and illustrator here. I also do pretty much all of our all the artwork. Any piece of artwork that you've seen related to NewLeaf Comics, I do that. I write a little bit. I do like our social media platforms and stuff like that. So pretty much the face that's not a face. That's me basically.
And the man with no face.
Yes, exactly. But I do a little bit of everything, you know. I'm the co-founder of the company. Me and or the team, I should say. Me and my buddy Chris, we co-founded it together. So I wear many hats, as does he.
I can tell. It's a nice hat.
Yeah. Thanks. It's just because I haven't gotten a haircut in a while, so.
I was just telling Greg, like, hey, you should get a Sierra Nova comic hat, so I don't have to brush my hair.
That's what I'm looking into doing some hats for us too, for the same purpose.
There we go.
So like, I'm rocking my own merchandise as opposed to some Adidas.
There you go.
Okay.
Now I can't see my hands. So when I fiddle, it's all down here.
What do I do with my hands?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a couple questions, and we're going to just get right into it.
Yeah, definitely.
What does that even say?
Which one?
First one. Did you already do that one?
Basically, yeah. We just asked.
Oh, yeah, okay.
That's from the book.
You can ask the next one.
If the old you could see you now, what would the new you say?
Or the old you say.
That's what the new you. That's what it says in the book.
I wonder if
okay, so if I'm
unless it's a typo.
basically I'm talking to my younger self. Is that the question?
Yeah, both. So if the old you could see the new you, what would that conversation look like? What would the old you think of the new you, and what would the new you say to the old you?
Oh man, I think the old me, me from let's say 5-10 years ago, would probably be really proud that I just picked a direction and really went with it because the old me had a really strong problem being pulled between a couple different things that I was pretty good at the time. One being like music and like writing and stuff like that, and then. And the struggle to like be an artist and stuff like that, because I've been doing hand-drawn visual arts since before I can really remember, you know. So I've been doing that for like my whole life, and then music kind of became a passion as I got a little older and into high school, and I kind of drew away from art a little bit. So I think the old me, like I said, like 10 years ago, me would probably just be really happy that I chose a direction. And kind of how far I've came and since making that really finite decision. And I think what the new me, the current me, would say to the old me would just be to not waste time, man. Because time is that number one asset you can't really ever get back, you know. So I think if I could talk to and counsel the younger me, even the me from 2 years ago, I would really just tell him just buckle down, you know, every day, make every day count, make every day productive, make every day as less of a compromise and more of what you want to do with your time. And then, you know, obviously there's going to have to be some compromises in your day-to-day, but to just try and be as productive as possible.
Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So then, what currently keeps you motivated? What's motivating you to move forward to in the now?
Oh man, so many things. No, I have a lot of long-term goals for our company, so that obviously keeps me very motivated with like the things that we want to do, like on a yearly. But day to day, what motivates me really is just that inner drive to succeed. That's like always there. It's always like, what am I going to do? What's my next move to better myself? That's always been on my mind. I've been that kind of person since I was young. So I've always just had that drive to move forward. But more recently in the present day, I just got married. So
yeah,
congrats.
Thank you. But that's been a major motivator for me. Is just like planning my future for my family. And making my wife proud and making my kids proud and all that kind of stuff. So that's definitely a day-to-day motivator for me.
Awesome.
Okay, to piggyback off of goals, what goals do you have for yourself in the next 5 years and even 10 years?
Yeah, 5 years down the line, I just want to have more books out. I want to have more 100% original work coming out, which we've just had so much in the pipeline for such a long time, and me being the only artist here, it's just hard at NewLeaf in general to just kind of like get a lot of stuff off the ground. It's usually reliant and dependent upon me, so really I have no one to blame. It's always just kind of like on my shoulders, and I just that time battle, that's kind of our issue here. Currently, so I guess in the next 5 years, I would really just want to kind of climb over those time hurdles and things like that, and start making a team so we can just get more stuff out, production-wise. In time 10 hurdles. Years, we want to have.
Sounds like something from a movie.
Years, I'm sorry.
I was saying time hurdles. It sounds like something from a movie.
Good old time hurdles. If I could pull a time heist, I definitely would. But no, in 10 years, we really just want to be really established as a company, and not chained down by day jobs. So we just really want to be immersed fully 110%, making this our day-to-day, our day job. We go into whatever is our office, and we have goals and things like that for our day, for our week, for our month. That's all focused around creation. That's all focused around growing our business and growing our fan base, our network, anything that we have to do. And it's actually something that I was talking to my partner about, and just thinking, it's great that we're creative, and it's great that we have a lot of drive to create, but we also need to be very prolific businessmen, and we need to really understand what it takes to move forward in a business sense. And then if we need to take a step back in terms of creative roles, and I'm just doing something creative, or he's just doing something creative, and then we have somebody else kind of managing our business aspect of it, then that's something that we're going to need to think about, moving forward. But just because, as much as a driven person I am, I really want to do art. That's my love, that's my passion. So if I can find somebody who's really just driven and understands our goals, and can kind of drive our business model moving forward, then we're kind of excited to bring somebody else into the fold in that way.
Yeah, it's very funny too. This book right here talks all about that technician, the technician mindset, where you gotta you're basically the artist, but in order to have a successful company, you need to have the manager and the entrepreneur above that. And whether if you always want to be the technician and you try to start your own business, you're just creating another job for yourself, but you also have to be the manager and all this other stuff. So it depends on how much of that you want to take on and how much you're okay with handing off.
Absolutely, and I think with that in mind, with that concept in mind, I think we've just been failing upwards in that way. That we, at first you're kind of naive when you start taking on a business role, and you're like, I can do this all. I can do everything. I can do the art. I can do the business. I can do the management of the social media and all that kind of stuff, and building an email list and all that kind of stuff. You have all the right things in mind, but to take on all those tasks is just really impossible. And for one person, let's just put it that way. So the more people you have involved, the more you can delegate, the more you can fill roles, the better it just works in general. and I work with a team in New Zealand as my day job. Thank God I'm an illustrator full time, so I have a little bit of flexibility in my creative role to work a lot in the creative side. So we have a lot of work in progress. Let's just put it that way. But in terms of publishing, there's quite a few steps that has to be taken. So those are the kind of hurdles that we're working with right now as NewLeaf as a company. But yeah, the more you can delegate to other people and find competent people and train competent people and just have the same kind of like goal in mind, the better it all works out in the long run.
Yeah.
So speaking of obstacles in the way, like what are some of the speed bumps you've come across while trying to build your business outside of just understanding that that you need to have a business mindset, not just the artist mindset? What are some of like the physical hurdles you've had to jump over?
I think one of the main hurdles is just the work and to live situation. And that's something that everybody kind of faces as an independent, because we're trying to do everything kind of from the ground floor. I mean, you guys know what I'm talking about in that regard, and I think anybody that's an independent publisher or trying to do anything independently without any backing, that's kind of, again, trying to overcome that work to live situation and still do creative things on the side. It's tough. It's not easy, and when you have a family, when you have other responsibilities as well, kind of on top of that, your time ends up being very short to do to take on all these projects and all these goals and stuff like that. So I think that's the main challenge. And alongside that has been the financial challenge of because everything that we do at the end of the day has a price tag. At the end of the day, it's either our time that's being invested, and that's you're buying your time basically. Is it for free? That's your decision, but your time is ultimately your greatest asset. So either we're investing time or investing money to keep things afloat. We have to pay for our website, we have to pay for marketing tools, we have to pay for tutorials, we have to pay for anything that's going to help us grow as a business. So that's all something that we have to kind of come out of our own pockets with. So again, it's just tough to take on those small business startup challenges when you are still working a day job, when you still have 40 hours committed or 30 hours or however much you're committed to somebody else's dream or somebody else's business. Those two challenges I think are the hardest for us. Because creatively, I think we're too far ahead. If that makes any sense. Creatively, we have a lot going, but it's just finding the time to actually get all those things done. Saying and doing are two different things. So
like you built out the part of getting good at making comic books, but that's only one slice of the whole pie. And so that seems like what most artists get stuck on.
Yeah, and I was actually watching your guys' first podcast, your first guest, Todd Rayner, and I think he was really insightful, and he has this really very professional vibe about him. That he has experience. He's done some things, he's done some different things. He's worked kind of in the older school of thought that's transitioning to the newer school of thought. So it was just really interesting to kind of have his perspective on it. And Kickstarters, obviously, Kickstarters, crowdfunding in general, it's a huge asset to people, to indie creators, to independents. It cannot be overstressed how awesome it is to have that kind of platform to work through and to work with. But the roadblocks and the hurdles that come with that is that you have a whole new set of tasks to take on. And if you're already limited with time, if you're already limited with your budget, if you're limited with a couple different things like that, you already have those hurdles. It's just another thing that can be a challenge. So it's accessible, it's awesome, but it's also a challenge to kind of get on top of everything.
Oh yeah. So let's dive deeper into your world. So your comic book, uriel&goose. So what's it about?
So uriel&goose is a purely creative piece of work that If I could explain the mindset behind it, then it's easier to kind of explain what's going on in the comic. The mindset behind it is really just a satirical look at a couple real life things that me and my writer have experienced in life. That when it comes to people's diet, when it comes to a couple of just kind of instrumental systems within our society, we're kind of poking fun at those things, dissecting them a little bit. Just trying to make people think about what they do on a daily basis. Like, are the systems that we have in place in our real world, effective, efficient, and prosperous? So that's the kind of things. Those are the kind of questions that we want people to ask. But we are also doing it in an extremely humorous way that's so lighthearted, because we really, at our core, we are lighthearted. And there's serious matters in the world, and people can be too bogged down by those things because there's a lot. There's a lot of violence, there's a lot of hate, there's a lot of all those different things that you experience as an American and outside of America. And we want it to be something light that people can enjoy, that's pure entertainment for the most part, but also slips in those kind of like little nuggets of truth and wisdom, and just kind of makes you second guess your day-to-day activities. Like, what's your diet? Do you actually know, in terms of your diet, do you actually know where your food's coming from? Do you actually know what's inside of your food? Do you know the health content, the health risks, all those different things? And it's stuff that we're passionate about on a personal level. So it just helps kind of push the comic forward in terms of the direction. But Chris is just amazing. Chris Gordon, he's the writer of uriel&goose, and he's just amazing at creating this very tangent kind of linear story. So it never feels like it's going in one direction. It always feels like it's going in numerous different directions, and you don't really know how to gauge the main character. Uriel&goose, you never really know what they're about, to a certain degree, and it's actually kind of awesome because it doesn't force you to have any realistic attachment to this world or this character, or these characters. I'm sorry, my stand there got all crazy. You don't have any expectations of reality to a certain degree, and that frees us up, or frees me up as an artist to kind of do whatever. In terms of the visuals, which is really fun. And yeah, I've just fallen in love with the first time I read his script. I just fell in love with the comedy aspect of it, and it keeps you on your toes and it keeps you guessing. And like I said, you never really have a clear direction of where this is going. So it just it's off the wall. Yeah, it's pretty plain and simple to explain it that way.
Mm-hmm. Is comedy your favorite genre for comics, or like, do you have like a favorite genre?
That's a tough one, actually, because in terms of comics, when I read comics, I really like. Obviously, I love the visual aspect of it, and when I read a comic, I'm really dissecting it. It was funny because Todd, he actually touched on that too. He was like, when I read comics now that I'm making my own project, I'm kind of dissecting what's going on in this comic. So a lot of the time when I open a comic, I'm looking at the layout, I'm looking at the lettering, I'm looking at the color. You know what I mean? I'm dissecting each part, and I'm like trying to figure out, how can I improve my own work? So now when I read comics, it's definitely more of a analytical practice as opposed to like enjoyment. But when it comes to concepts that I enjoy, I love sci-fi. Sci-fi is like.
That's funny. I think that was his other one.
Yeah, I think he likes sci-fi.
Yeah.
That's so weird.
Sci-fi is definitely my favorite concept in any genre. So movies, comics, writing, anything like that. But I definitely love good fantasy work. I love the medieval kind of stuff. I'm like 6 seasons into Game of Thrones right now, so I'm catching up. And that's kind of like I love that, Lord of the Rings, all that kind of stuff. But comedy is definitely up there for me. I love to laugh. I love watching good comedy movies and stuff like that. I've seen billions of different comedy movies, it feels like, anyway. So it's definitely one of, but not the. To answer your question.
What about movies? It's like the same.
In terms of movies, I think I definitely am drawn and 100% down with superhero movies. Because for me, just depending on how they're written, they can be the best mix of all those different genres. You can get comedy, you can get drama, you can get that high tension, you can get action. You know, it incorporates all those different things if they're really well done. Like the Marvel series has been really well done. So that would probably
they even mix in a little bit of fantasy and sci-fi too. You get know the sci-fi with Tony Starks, and you get the fantasy with Doctor Strange. You get like the mix of those.
Yeah, exactly. I can't wait for Asgardians of the Galaxy.
I can't wait for the new Doctor Strange because it's supposed to be like their first horror movie. Yeah, and I love horror, so.
That's definitely cool.
Yeah, I really didn't expect them to even try to jump into that genre just because it's not really a Marvel thing to do. Like horror, when you attach it to a comic company, I think it's more of a DC area.
Yeah, that is funny. I was about to say, I feel like DC has been more apt for going that direction, like with the Dark Knight, the Joker, all the the things that people think about when they think about like the Batman field. Like that's like all the Arkham games, for example. All those are like super dark. So it's like that's
or like Justice League Dark. Constantine. You get those kind of dudes that are kind of more towards that.
I forgot about Constantine.
But you don't really see it from Marvel at all. So it's kind of a cool. I'm interested to see where they're going with that.
Well, the one that they're bringing up that does kind of start to enter that realm though is they're remaking Blade.
Yeah.
So that's So like that's how they can start getting a little more dark, and some of the movies that I saw that they were supposedly going to release, not ones that were officially announced like the ones at San Diego Comic-Con, but they've talked about the fact that they've got access to the Fantastic Four and obviously the Silver Surfer along with them. And like basically after Thanos, the next biggest bad guy is Galactus.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
So they can get some pretty crazy stuff going on.
It's either Galactus or probably Adam Warlock, since he's already been teased in. And Adam Warlock is a pretty substantial character in the Marvel universe, so it could be one of the two. But I would love to see a new take on Fantastic Four and Silver Surfer especially. Galactus would be amazing.
Silver Surfer. Yeah, so Silver Surfer is my dad's favorite superhero too. Just because his whole concept is that he sacrificed his life for his family, and that's literally the whole, and that's the reason he goes around. Yeah, and then once he sees it in other people, then he becomes the good guy. It's like, so it is awesome.
Yeah, definitely.
Sweet. What's next? Where are you at?
That one.
Okay, you can
You don't want to go?
go. I did all the beginning.
Oh wait, no, that is. Yeah. What is the ultimate plan?
Greg, I want to hear your voice, buddy.
Nobody wants to hear that. What is the ultimate plan for your comics?
Our ultimate plan is really to just publish as much as possible. But we have a overall dynamic for our universe. So it's kind of weird how the creation of all this, NewLeaf Comics in general, came about, and we had a couple projects that we were like, yeah, we want to do these projects, and it just kind of evolved, and now it's just this deep universe that connects all of the various projects that we wanted to work on through different genres and stuff like that, and they all connect inside of one galaxy. So everybody talks about the universe, and the universe is tremendously, infinitely, obscenely huge. So we're not talking about a universe, we're talking about a galaxy and the problems that go on inside of this galaxy. It is called the NewLeaf Galaxy, so let's just get that out of the way right now. But our projects, in terms of the scale of where they sit in our galaxy is one end of our galaxy is one side of our projects, and then the other side of our projects is the other side of our galaxy, and then they kind of meet up at a certain point, and there's a connection there. So we have these comics that build up our Earth, and that's our superhero universe, and then we have our sci-fi universe that's made up of our funky, crazy influences that we grew up with, like Cowboy Bebop,
very nice.
Evangelion, just all types of different 90s, Akira,
Toonami. Yeah.
Exactly. And growing up on, just I love anime. That's a huge impactful influence on my life. And that's how we kind of started writing our own project, and it became a comic. Because comics are just for me, like I started studying like Eisner, and for me Eisner's like anything that Eisner said when he was making comics is like my Bible, So he just got this great vision of what a comic can be in terms of storytelling and the legacy of storytelling that has evolved into comics, and I just love that theory of it. So I just kind of fell in love and tried to mesh up the two things, and we decided to start writing this comic, and it just blossomed into something else, and then we added on another writer, and he has his own ideas, and we just intermingled and created this huge hurricane of concepts, and somehow we managed to kind of fuse them all together. So our end goal is just to connect one side of our university, or one side of our galaxy together. That's our main goal. So if we can get there in the next, like you said, like 10 years, then that's like success.
Oh. Very cool. Yeah, that's fun too.
Okay, so this is probably gonna be like
just fire them off.
Just like an open-ended question, because it's gonna be a big one. The indie revolution. Let's get into that. What role do you see yourself like in all of it, besides the indie inquest thing that you've been doing, and then other things?
Well, I definitely love the inquest. I love that. I love being able to just talk about comics, because I'm not in terms of our team. I'm not the huge comic guy. You know what I mean? Like I grew up and I've seen comics. I love comics. They, like I said, the storytelling aspect, all of that stuff is just brilliant to me, and I love it. But in terms of like comic knowledge and being like a huge fanboy, that's my other writer, Nate. He's the writer that helped me put together our superhero universe. So he has a huge wealth of knowledge when it comes to that kind of stuff. Wow. So it's more or less like. Man, ask that question again, because I really just want to like bring up my thought process, right? Because, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
What?
Yeah, like basically the indie revolution. Like, what do you see? What have you been doing with it? And what do you see your role in the future with it? Yeah.
Yeah, no, sorry about that.
It's all good.
I just kind of got off track with thinking about, and I just want to really just shout out to my team too. I want to include them in everything that we're talking about today because they're huge. That's another motivator. I kind of missed them in that. But in terms of the indie revolution, doing the indie quest, like I said, has been great just to be able to talk about comics. And I want to be able to help people who are kind of starting off on their journey, or in terms of I can really only speak to the art, in terms of my experience and knowledge and know-how and stuff like that. But I'm also a fan of really well-written things, and I do write myself. So I kind of try to just give some tidbits of help, that might come from my perspective. But I also just like to read this stuff and really just analytically dive into every aspect. Dive into what's the writer. Indies are especially awesome to me because there's not really a lot of borders. Like when it comes to indie creators, they have less boundaries than somebody who's writing for, let's say, Marvel or let's say DC or any other established company. There's a set of rules that they kind of have to follow as an employee, writing for this company. And maybe some of them get a little more leeway than others, but that's probably based on their experience and success. Whereas independent comics, it's just kind of like, it's all there. It's all on the table. This is how they write. This is their style. This is their gimmick or ideals. This is what they're going for. So it's interesting to see, hopping around through different companies, kind of like gauging what is important to them and what they're all about. And in terms of the, again, my biggest source of input is going to come through the art side because I'm an illustrator. So I just try to inform as much as I can through my experience and my knowledge. And I really just hope, in terms of a role for the indie revolution, I just want to be a voice and help with as much as I possibly can, get us in front of as many people as I possibly can, and just support as many people as I possibly can with my knowledge. So if there's anything NewLeaf Comics can do, we're going to do it. We definitely want to be more involved with all of the creators that are involved. We really don't have a strong relationship with everybody. You know, you guys have been great, and you know, like you said in your introduction, I think it was a post, that we've just built a friendship here, and that's what I want to continue with all these other independents as well. Just really create a strong friendship, not just a business relationship, but stuff like where we can go and visit each other. You know what I mean? Hey, you know, I'm going to be doing a con near you guys. You know, let's get lunch. You know what I mean? And just vibe with all these
there's couch surfing.
Yeah, there's some that already do that. There's Chuck. There's like in a bunch of Facebook groups, I've become like kind of friends, almost like acquaintances with them.
Yeah.
There's like Sean, Barber. I think that's how you say his name. Chuck. I'm not gonna even try to pronounce his last name. Starts with a P. Rob Anderson, which he like classifies himself as like the indie devil, so he does like videos like every couple minutes a day.
Yeah, he's super consistent with this stuff.
Yeah, and he just like basically like lets everybody know like what's going on in his life and like the other indie people and like Kickstarters and everything like that. So we're trying to grab more people like that into this thing, and I slightly talked about the Indie Revolution with him, and he's like, wow, that sounds like a partnership kind of thing where you should do. I was like, yeah, we need to talk about that. But he's going to be a guest some point soon, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as a movement of just like an ideological movement, let's just put it that way. If this was a political movement, this is the kind of movement that we need. You know, there's an industry, there's an established standard, there's people that are trying to make it in this industry and not necessarily follow that standard. So this is what we need in this industry. We need people coming together as independents and just saying, how can I help you? You know, how can I just give a little bit, and you know, we can give and take, and we can become stronger because of that. And the stronger alliances that we build, let's just put it that way, we form this net, so that way, you know, if one person, it's just kind of this safety net that you don't have as an independent. So if we can create a safety net of different people that are helping and contributing, you know, our success is a lot more likely than if we were trying to take on all these challenges on our own. And, you know, it's brilliant to you guys for actually just, you know, starting this movement and really creating a space for people to do that. So that's something that I want to thank you guys for, especially. But yeah, it's definitely something that we wholeheartedly, you know, agree with and we want to be part of.
Yeah, that's why we do Music Monday. Well, I first had to figure out I don't even know what that is.
Alliteration?
Like a certain post for certain days, because you have to do like the 80-20 principle thing with your business. If you just talk about yourself, nobody wants to hear you talk about yourself like every single minute of the day. So
yeah.
I do Mondays for music and Wednesdays for webcomics, which is just like whatever I can find. Either promote our stuff that's on our website, like you guys and a bunch of other people. And then Fridays, there's Filmmaker Friday, because those are the three that I'm actually trying to do for our business. So we're obviously working on comics, but we want to get into like music and film. And to do that, we need to like start somewhere. So.
Right.
Okay.
Well, definitely. In terms of the 80-20 content stuff, like yeah, we definitely. We just social media is just such a big challenge for us, and it's weird to say that out loud, but it is a really big challenge for us to just stay consistent. So like you were mentioning Rob. And just his consistency alone is just ridiculously impressive, you know. And I just give it up to anybody who can really continue to, you know, fresh content, different content, supporting other people, you know. So if you look at our timeline, it's just a mix of different stuff, you know. We obviously want to promote ourselves and our projects and upcoming and stuff like that, but also there's just so much cool stuff out there, so many great artists, so many cool projects going on. Like it would be incredibly boring to just talk about myself, like, or just talk about us. Like, there's so much cool stuff out there.
Yeah.
We're living in like the golden age of just creativity.
Absolutely, yeah. And actually, after this, I'll have to send you a link for when if you ever struggle to like build out content. There was a Gary Vaynerchuk has a really good model. It's called it's like the 86 content model, something like that. But basically, it talks about how to it's the slideshare thing. It talks about how to make content like this, where it's like long form content that you can then chop up into smaller bits.
Right.
And you could use it for images, you could use it for small snippet videos, you could use it for GIFs, you could transcribe it into written word and use it for blogs. And so like by doing that, you can really expand your content. Maximize your time, because basically you can do one thing a week and then break that up to be used for the next 2 weeks. And you can, it's very powerful, which is, what we're also hoping to, do with this is, share the knowledge from everybody and then break it into content small enough that whoever wants to consume it can consume it on whatever platform that they want to consume it on. So it's not like we're going to be like, oh, this is only on YouTube and you better join us on YouTube. It's like, you don't like to watch videos and you like to read blog articles, well then go over to Medium or go over to our website, stuff like that. So that's what we're hoping to do. And by building out our content and showing how this can be an effective way to communicate with your audience, we're also hoping to build an example for other indie creators so that they too can do what we're doing.
Excellent.
Yeah, what's that last question? Oh yeah, so we've talked a lot about what you've done. We've talked about some of the stuff we've done and some of the stuff we're doing together. But what advice do you have for people coming into or coming into the field? They're just a new creator and they don't know what they're doing. What's some advice you have for them?
I would say to really just make sure that you're spending your time wisely. That's one of the things. And secondly, just don't come in with any false ideas that like you're going to succeed right away. Because that's definitely not going to happen.
No, I'm so awesome.
As it can happen. Let's put it that, like, we're in the age of like the viral marketing, viral things. So things can really hit overnight. But
it's usually after all that. It's usually after a lot of work in the background.
Exactly. Yeah, like you've hit already a certain audience, and that's allowed it to go viral. So like you're saying, there's definitely a lot more background work than is seen in the foreground. And I think that's just, it gives this false expectation of like, as soon as I start creating something that I think is cool, I'm going to be successful. And,
No.
I think we're confident in what we're doing, and we love what we're doing, and we're so like happy to like get people to read it and stuff. But the real side of it is that none of this stuff could be successful at all. None of it could not be received well at all, and that's just how it is. It's not something that should scare us. It's not something that we should be afraid of. We have to produce what we're going to produce because that's what we love to do. So it's not something that we should be afraid of or fear. But we also can't go in with any false expectations and then get down on ourselves when things don't work out. Look, I made the comment before. I feel like we've just been failing upwards. Like it's just been this process of having these goals and trying to accomplish them, and then on the road to accomplishing them, realizing that they were really far
overzealous
goals in the first place. Yes, exactly. But yeah, I mean, it's taught me personally so much about myself, about what it takes to really succeed, what hard work is. Like seriously, I mean, honestly, I don't think that people understand how much work it is to just make a comic. Like, just make a comic. And then if you add on the business aspect of trying to get your comic in front of people, fund the comic, build these networks, get this audience, work through all these different platforms, which platform is the best for you, if you're going to print your comics, how to print your comics. Like, it's tremendous, and it's not something that people really understand. Like, when I say it, I've worked with so many clients. First of all, let me just touch back on your goals and your expectations that you should have when you're starting off. I've worked with so many clients as a designer and as an illustrator, and a lot of the times what I've run run into is people have this really grandiose expectation, and they have this like shoestring budget, and the two things just they don't work together. Like, I'm sorry, like if you've grown up in a capitalistic society, you already know that doesn't pan out. You know, like if you're going to McDonald's thinking you're going to get health food, that doesn't work. You know, and it's the same kind of thing that like you have to have with your expectations. Like, you have to really understand that you're going to get what you pay for, and if you don't have the means, then you're going to have to work that other side of it. And when you're working with an artist, like if you're a writer, and a lot of creators, I've noticed too, as I've worked, a lot of creators, like entrepreneurs, start off as like they're writers. Like, it's not the artist first, and then, you know, like you're taking on projects or whatever. It's usually the writer who has an idea, and then he tries to commission an artist for that idea. And I think you guys are in that boat, right? Like, Greg, you're a writer, and you've had to commission artists to work on your work. Now, if you went into that relationship, an artist-writer relationship, with no expectation of, like me as an artist, of getting paid, or getting paid this very little bit, and then you as a writer, Greg, just demand, and you're not meeting me halfway, that's not a relationship. You know, that's not something that's going to continue. And I think that's where a lot of creators get mixed up. Because when you start on a project and you're taking on an artist, and you really have to understand they're working for a living. You know, they have to make an earnable income, just like you make on a daily basis. You wouldn't expect people to work for free, so you should never expect your artists to work for free. Which is a huge thing in the industry.
I think that's a big thing with writers. Like, a writer will write something, and now that it's done, they're like, well, I did this for free. If you could do that for free, we could work together. But it's like, they don't understand that.
You can find a relationship like that. You can create a relationship.
Well, that's the thing, is it needs to be like a partnership, and not so much a oh, you'll get paid later. It should be more like, we'll get paid later. You know, it's a
And again, meeting halfway. So you can't have ridiculous expectations of an artist. Like, okay, so here's an example from my actual professional career. I was working. I found somebody to work with. He already had an idea. Let's just put it that way. And he had gone through several artists. And I'm like, okay, that's already kind of a red flag, because why have you been through so many artists, right? All right, whatever. So I started talking to this guy, and he's expecting, like, the artist that he's referencing is like Jim Lee, Joe Mad. He's really experienced artist in the industry, and he's really expecting that, like first of all, dude, I'm not a big name. Like, I'm sorry, I'm not. Like, I don't have a huge, and I go into every conversation, especially with the creative, if I'm going to work with them, with a very honest and upfront approach. Here's my portfolio. Here's what I've done before, and it's very transparent. You know, so I wasn't giving him any illusions that I can create this, like, stupid, ridiculous comic, you know, because especially at that point, I wasn't there. You know, I definitely was not there. I'm still not there now. I've come a long way, but I'm still not there now. But his expectations were one thing, and it was just so completely unrealistic. And then I was trying to meet his demands, but he just kept piling more on, and then he would, it was like, oh, can I pay you next Tuesday? Can I pay you this day? Can I pay you this day? And it's like,
I'll gladly pay you
like,
Tuesday
really,
for a hamburger today.
Exactly. And no, that's not how your relationship should go. It should be a very thought out process of, like, okay, if I'm gonna enlist an artist and I'm gonna pay this artist money, how am I going to do that? You know, and I'm gonna create a schedule for myself where either I have money saved up and I say, okay, I can pay this guy for like 6 weeks of work ready, you know, or I go, okay, every 2 weeks, this is how it's going to go. From my check, it's going to go straight into your account, kind of thing, you know? So there has to be this relationship of, like, trust. If you're going to be paying an artist, he has to trust that you're actually going to pay him, you know? And he has to trust that you're going to have reasonable expectations. You're not going to expect a comic done in 2 weeks. That's impossible. Like Todd Rayner was just talking about, if you're doing pencils for a comic, like, a reasonable pace is like a page per day. So if you're expecting your comic to be fully done in a month's time and you only have one artist working on it, that's impossible. That's never going to happen. Like, stop deluding yourself into thinking that's how comics work. Because the only reason why these major companies can churn out really effective processes, because they have, like you said, the money and the staff. And they have every single job that's going on in the comic, somebody's working on it. You know, if it's not an editor. It's you're a layout designer. You got your logo designer, like a graphic designer. You have your storyboard artist. You have your penciler. You have your inker. You have your colorist. You have somebody who's doing final design edits and things like that. So every place in a comic has a job, and that's why they get done so fast and effectively. But when you're talking about somebody creating an independent comic, that's not how it's going to work. So just really, if I could talk to anybody that's coming into the industry right now, if you're a writer and you're looking for an artist, be really, really realistic with what your possibilities are, what your budget is, and if you're contacting an artist who is kind of on the come up, just like how you are, respect them to the utmost degree, and just like you said, try to create a positive relationship where this is a partnership. You're not my employee. You're not working for me, and yeah, you're relying on my money, I guess, to a certain degree, but we're a partnership, you know? So that's how I think everybody should approach a project, as a partner rather than an employer. Because in graphic design, I've seen that a lot too, where, you know, they pay you once and then they expect you to keep doing work for them, and it's like, well, you're not paying me on an hourly, so I don't know how we can work that. So yeah, just really have a clear expectation that's realistic. First of all, do your research, find out how long it takes, how much it takes to actually make a comic, and then start budgeting. You know, because if you're thinking about creating a comic, there's a huge amount of financial responsibility when it comes to printing, when it comes to just making the comic itself. So really start budgeting your money, and then come up with a reasonable budget. Negotiate with an artist if you can find an artist who's willing to work with you. Negotiate with them, and just stay reasonable. Just be reasonable. Be a reasonable person.
Well, even what is it? Impact Theory, like their new Impact, or was it IT Comics, little sub company where they've started to print out comics. Like that's one of the things. Like even they have even though it's a small team, they still have a team of artists. And like at best, I think they're getting close to one comic like every month and a half to 2 months. Like they're starting to speed up real fast now, but like they were working on it for a very long time before that. Like they announced the comic book probably like 6 months before it was released, and so like and that was just one comic book, and then it was like 6 months after that the next one came out, and now they're starting to roll out. But it's after they've been working with artists who've now crafted a certain design and look for this, and now they can actually work faster, but they're also getting paid a lot up front as opposed to the typical artist getting paid after.
Yeah, and I mean, if I could give like an example again from my professional life now. So I create comics and I do character design, illustration, storyboarding, and then like comics in general. So like pencil work, ink work, all that kind of stuff, colors. I do that all for a company in New Zealand. They're called Maui Studios. They have approached our relationship from the beginning, and this has all been telecommunicating. So that's actually a really difficult relationship to actually build. You know, being in person with somebody and having that relationship, that's one thing.
And the
when
time
you're working
zones.
with a client, time zones, just your communication. Like they speak a different language. They speak English, but it's a different language. You know, they have different ways and manners of talking with one another. And just on top of that, just communicating with somebody, telecommuting, it's difficult. And they've made this process so easy because they go in with a clear expectation of what they want, and they're not under any illusions that you're going to work for free or work, yourself to death. And they, how they worked with me is they just started off with one project. Here, what can you do with this? Here's your tester, you know what I mean? And they paid me for it. They paid me for my hours, and we had a flat fee. Everybody was happy at the end of the day, and, I was happy to have some experience in the industry. They were happy to give me the money for it, so it all worked out. And piece by piece, it just kept going that way, and building the relationship, and building and building and building. 2 years later, now I'm on their payroll, and now I'm getting paid an hourly wage to do things for them, throughout the spectrum. It's not just creating comics. Like I said, it's character design. It's, anything they need me to do, I'll do it. And they've just been perfect in terms of, like, if I could build a perfect client, this would be them. You know what I mean? And that's kind of what you want to cultivate as a creator if you're going into a project. If you are commissioning a project, you want to be the perfect client, So, and the way that, or when you do that, you're going to see some really, really good results. And yeah, like you said, in terms of the realism realism of creating a comic and the timeline and all that kind of stuff, it takes time, guys. It really does take time, and especially if you want a great product. You know, if you want a great product, you can't rush different things about it. You can't. You gotta put the proper amount of time, effort, and resources into it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's the other big thing is like whenever you're working with anyone, you should never be trying to like discount the artist, like or even vice versa. Like you shouldn't, if you're trying to get a cut as the artist as opposed to getting paid, you shouldn't try to discount the ability of the writer. And that, like, whenever you should always go win-win. Like, there should never be, neither one of you should feel like you got the short end of the stick. You should both go in willingly, and if not, the relationship at some point will not be good. So you never you should always go to what is it? Damn it, another book back there. This, How to Win Friends and Influence People talks about like you should go for win-win or what is it, like no, like you don't want to compromise, because even a compromise, that means you both kind of lost. Right, so it's like you got to find a spot where you're both happy. Where like, say you pay a lot of money, but it's because the art is so good, you can't like, yeah, that was definitely worth that money. That's why some people will pay obscene amount of money for things that some people would pay nothing for. You got to find the right client for the right creator, and like that's the whole point.
And I think what happens too a little sometimes is that I think, you know, as a freelancer, we're trying to get a job, right? So we're obviously offering our services. So we're in a position where we're asking for something. We're asking for work, you know? So we're in that position, right? But as a person who's commissioning the work, that doesn't mean you have ownership of that person. You know what I mean? Like, there has to be the separation of, like, again, I'm paying for this product to be developed, and if I really want this product to be the best that it can be, what am I doing to make that happen? And you should share that with your artists, with anybody that's on your team. You guys should all have that mentality of how can we make the product the best that it can be, and where can I give and where can I take in that process of making it that's going to, you know, actually get those results. So a lot of the time, I think everybody, and just as a life lesson, maybe we need to take a step back and just see what we're doing. Are we bettering the situation by our behavior, our mindset, all those different things? Like there's plenty of time to just stop, take a step back, reevaluate, and say, yeah, I was wrong for doing that, you know? And especially in the business world, apologies go a long way. Like you can mend a relationship so easily by just saying, you know what? My bad, I'm sorry. Let me make this right for you. And things will go really, really well if you can just kind of drop your ego a little bit and really work as a team. I think that's what is lacking in a lot of relationships in terms of freelance relationships. It's not a team mentality.
Yeah, it should always be like, you know, try to keep all of your promises, and the point is if you ever have to break one, like you should be very sincere in your apology. That's a very powerful lesson. I'm not throwing another one back there. But yeah, so that was a lot of good advice for the people coming into the field. So now I got a question. What's your advice to someone who's been working, trying to become a creator, trying to, whether it be the artist or the writer, and they've been doing it for, say, a few years now, and they're about to throw in the towel? What advice do you have for them?
Ooh, do not give up. I mean, honestly, just...
Never give up, never surrender.
That's actually one of my favorite movies.
I love that movie.
Dude, it's so good. It was so
cult classic. Oh, yeah.
Honestly, really don't ever give up, you know, but just seek out different avenues, seek out different assets. Really ask yourself, if you're not successful or you haven't gained any traction in doing what you're doing so far, ask yourself what you're doing wrong, you know, like, and seek out advice, like, as much as possible. Like, I can't undersell that as much as like, again, remove your pride from the situation. Do you want your product to be successful? If the answer is yes, then you need to do everything possible within your power to make that happen. So if you're not asking for advice right now and you think that you got the right stuff and it's just nobody's responding to it, you're doing something wrong, you know? So just go and seek out some advice. Go and really listen. Don't just seek it out just to, like, you know, give yourself lip service. Like, seek it out and fix the things that seem to jump out, you know, through a collection of different advice. Are those things coming across, and each person that you ask for advice, are they saying the same things? And maybe you should change those things. And just keep working, man. Like, honestly, keep working, keep looking for avenues. In terms of writing, it is a little harder, because you were talking about it with Todd in your last podcast. It is a little harder to kind of like freelance write, but there's absolutely avenues for you to do it. Greg he demonstrated a great way for writers to actually put out work, and that's just publish an ebook, and promote that thing like no tomorrow. Just the experience in itself of creating this from start to finish, having people able to critique that work, and then you have this body of work. Now you've started your body of work. Oh my gosh. Sorry about that, guys.
It's like a tornado came through the room. We saw it.
Yeah, no. It's my it's the I don't have the AirPods. I'm not a cool kid. So
you got the hat like Gary. You just need the yeah.
Yeah, I need to come up. I need to Gary V myself.
No, that's funny. There's a book I think actually called "There's No Such Thing as a Starving Artist," and that's the whole concept. Is like, if you're a good enough artist, like if your art is good enough that someone would buy it, then that just means you're not a good business person, right? And the point is that if you want to make it as an artist, you need to learn a second skill or pay someone else to do that part that you're not good at. And like that's the what is it? Delegate or automate. You got to get it off. You have to get it done somehow. Whether you learn how to do it or you give it to someone else.
No, yeah, and I was fortunate enough to kind of like go into graphic design when I did, because that taught me so much more about being business minded and customer minded and like stuff like that. So that was more of like this. It was kind of this introduction to a freelance mindset that I kind of got like somebody taught me that, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't just pick it up and start learning it myself. Like, somebody kind of said, hey, this is my idea, I'll teach you how to do A, B, and C, and, we can help each other out. And, again, that failing upward, that company failed. But I learned so much from that it set me on my path to doing what I'm doing now. So every lesson that I learned from that failure is something that drives me today, and something that I learned from and that I was able to establish the relationships I do have now because of that failure. And again, don't give up, because if I would have given up on that track, I wouldn't be where I am today. And honestly, today, this is probably the best time in my life. Like I said, I just got married and stuff like that, so that's great. But career-wise, I'm like the doorstep of where I want to be, and if I would have given up after that company failed, I never would be here. I would be doing probably just a day job and be really, really miserable. So I just don't give up, and that'd be a great piece of advice. But again, seek out other avenues. Like I said, Greg published a book, and congratulations, Greg. That's awesome, man. I haven't gotten a chance to read it, but I'm definitely.
It's a short story, but
that's one avenue, and that's one way to build your portfolio. Nobody's gonna hire a writer, first of all, that doesn't have any experience, because they just haven't seen any of your work. Like, you can't convince somebody you're a great writer if you haven't written it. So you have to put it all on paper. You have to let your work speak for itself to a certain degree, and just promote it and try to take criticism as much as you can and move forward. As an artist, there's obviously quite a few avenues that you can go, but those things do take, like you said, they take work, and there's some automation that's going to be in there too. Just like, so Patreon, let's just give that as an example. That's a way for an artist to build not only a following, but also kind of build an income, if they're able to do consistent work and things like that. So that's an avenue for an artist to kind of start in one place, give people a background information about, like, hey, this is what I'm doing, support me if you want, and I'm going to just be working towards this goal, and eventually you can get there.
Yeah, and a lot of them too, like the way that they can build a following isn't even around the final creation of the comic. It could be stuff like hyperlapse of you drawing, like the attraction to the seeing of it being built. That's how I know you posted a couple things like that. Like, that's very like to know what's going on.
No, and that's a theory that's still kind of challenging for me personally, because it's like a habit. You have to form the habit of actually documenting yourself. So that's something that's been a challenge for me, but it's such a true statement. Like, it's such a it's one of those things that's so obviously in front of your face, and you're like, how can't I get behind this, you know? So it's something I'm definitely working on, is like you said, documenting my story. And you're right, absolutely. People love to see, I get caught up in my own time-lapse videos, you know what I mean? Like, so it is cool to just watch it being created.
It's like, wow, I am awesome.
And no, actually, it's the same thing as like looking at a comic. Like, I'm like, man, I could have done that panel a little better. So now I know, like, when I go into actually like dummy the page up, I'm going to change that one thing. So it's always like this analytical process, and I'm super critical.
I like one of your
work,
time lapse videos. I just remember seeing you draw the same panel like 6 times. You kept erasing it and reworking it, and the reason that's helpful for some artists is maybe they're like, how do these people just drill it out the first time? It's like, oh, it turns out they're not. They're making just as many mistakes as you are.
Absolutely. Actually, I think my strongest point as an artist is my ability to sketch. So like my finals aren't even as good as the stuff that I sketch. So I feel like the sketch process sometimes is just a beautiful piece of magic, and sometimes it doesn't reflect in the final. So even I think some artists are the same way. Some of these industry giants, like their final work, it looks amazing. You wouldn't even think, but if you see them sketching, if you see them like the pieces they throw away, let's just put it that way, are probably even better. So yeah, I love that. I love that people pick up on that, like the erasing, like me erasing, because I've had actually a couple people tell me that, like, dude, it's so cool, like to see that you just, you're erasing, and you like, I thought this was great the first time, and then you erased it and made it better, and then you erased it again and made it even better. And it was like, I don't see it that way to a certain extent. To me, it's just like, that's not what I saw in my head, so I have to change it.
Damn it, yeah.
So that's how I see it. But yeah, it's great, man, and I really need to document more. Doing stuff like this, talking to you guys about this, it actually does motivate me to keep doing stuff and keep documenting. But yeah, it's super essential. If you're an artist and you're coming up in the industry right now, first of all, like, if you haven't been classically trained, let's just put it that way, if you haven't been through some form of schooling where you have a lot of the basics down, if you're starting from scratch and you're teaching yourself, you gotta get some tutorials, you gotta get some mentorship, you gotta get somebody who's gonna teach you skills, and you can just because of time's sake.
Yeah.
You can extrapolate so much more when somebody's digesting it that little bit more for you. You know what I mean?
Well, the whole
like
point. Why waste your time learning something that someone else already figured out? It's like
Exactly.
That's why I love like philosophy. Like that's a huge thing. It's like people figured out how to live life 2,000 years ago, and today we're still complaining. And it's like just read one book. You'll learn all this stuff. But yeah, there's some amazing online tutorials for drawing out there.
We actually want to make those too.
Oh, dude, go. Maybe this is the best piece of advice for everybody that's up and coming. Go to Udemy and start an account. Go to Udemy, start an account, and start paying for these $15, $30, $24 courses, and just destroy these courses, because I guarantee that these things are going to add value to your process. So if that's a huge piece of advice to give somebody. Go to Udemy, go to Teachable, go to these online resources where you can pay for tutorials. And
I followed one tutorial, and I'm not that good at drawing. I was able to pull this out.
Exactly.
Like that shit. Like that freaked me out when I was done. I was like, that's pretty good. And it's like, just like the little. I think like one of the biggest lessons I took away from that one tutorial. I didn't even finish the whole course. That was just like the second or third video. So it was like the whole point is it just talked about when you're drawing something, like draw all of the simple structures first, then go back. Don't focus on one thing and make it perfect, because then all of a sudden you get over here, and as you're drawing this other part to make it perfect, you get back to the beginning, you're like, oh crap, these don't match, right? Like, and a lot of people, they're so OCD, they're like, I need to make this circle so perfect, but it turns out a perfect circle isn't always the most appealing. In fact, even Google's logo, like Google's super analytic, and their logo isn't a perfect circle. It's actually slightly bent, because it doesn't look as appealing if it's perfect.
Oh,
yeah.
That's cool.
There's a lot of science behind that stuff too, like just making things look appealing. Using the golden rules, ratios, all that kind of stuff. So that's cool too. Good to just analyze it in that way. But
We're losing him. It's cutting out. No.
They're like, you've talked too long.
Yeah, right.
I had to restart it.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, there's another. This is like
I mean,
extra.
Oh, that's funny.
It only gives you 60 minutes.
Really?
Yeah.
That's funny.
This, I don't know. This.
Oh my god, we lost him.
No. He's just like talking away.
Yeah, hopefully he noticed.
He's just like, oh shit.
Yeah, we're still live, right? We're still recording. Wow, hang on. Oh my god, that might be on top of that recording this whole time. Oh my god, that's gonna be so funny. Oh, the video ended because the connection was lost? Oh, maybe we had actually lost it. Interact. I can't believe that popped up though after the fact. We should have left OBS open. God damn it. The video call ended. How do I reload the page? There's a way to refresh the page. Interact. There's F5. Isn't it? Help feedback. So funny because I wonder if this is still streaming. Either way, we'll be able to cut it because it's private anyway.
Yeah.
In a second, I'm gonna. Trying to get it to refresh. Just trying to keep remembering what I'm gonna just delete this. Yep. Add new. Browser.
Bones by connection.
Where's those things from the internet, John? It's funny, there's such a delay, it's still showing on YouTube. Hopefully it records everything like that. If not, you'll at least still have the audio.
Yeah. Like super behind the scenes.
Yeah, my forehead.
Audio form. Okay, let's try that.
Oh, you shouldn't be the only ones here. That's not the one I want. Where'd it go? Where's the call?
No idea.
Huh?
No idea.
Oh,
Uh,
is he back?
Is he right there?
Interacting with
He's just
browser.
like, where are they?
Yeah, probably.
That's weird. He's just like, ooh.
Let's see if I have the right one in there. Yeah, there we go.
Join.
Join Hangouts.
Okay. Wow.
That was cool.
Okay, that's
Hey, I hear you.
crazy.
Yep, 1 second. There's the video.
Ah, nice.
Oh,
Really hoping that we recorded the video for this.
Yeah, we definitely have the audio, but
Yeah.
the video. It's so funny. The video, it should still be recording. I think the video is still recording, but it's just funny because at one point a pop-up came up on the screen that we couldn't see, so it might be in the middle of the screen for the whole thing, which would be awesome.
All right.
Either way, I could fix it.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
No,
that's
that's
good.
fine.
That's not- Yeah, that's the whole reason. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's it called? Multiple layers. Six Sigma, right?
We're gonna figure this whole OBS thing out and make it even cooler. Yeah. So.
I don't know where we left off.
The very last thing we were talking about was. I gotta fix the screen still. Look how tight it is. 1 second.
First things first.
Fix that up there. Stretch that. Oh, missed it. There we go. Perfect. Now that's back to normal. Okay, let's go back to here. Move this over there.
Wow. All right.
Woo! Okay. Yeah, so what was it?
Throwing in the towel.
Oh yeah, you were talking about... No, I think we already talked about that.
Well, yeah.
Then we kind of brought up one last thing we were talking about. Yeah, I don't remember. We were talking about,
I was just finishing up the tips for anybody that's like coming up right now.
Like
you were talking about videos. You were talking about watching tutorials. Yeah.
We're actually.
That'd be my advice. Just learn the basics obviously first, and really push yourself like to learn and be the best artist that you can be before you start really having these high expectations of what your comic can be.
Draw every day.
If you're an artist, yes.
Same with the writer, right? Every day.
Yeah, keep moving forward. But like honestly, like I think comics are the best. Creating comics and making comics is the best way to actually become an illustrator. So even if you don't want to do comics like as your career, making comics is the best way to become an illustrator. It's like a crash course in illustration because it just pushes you to do so many different kinds of things at different kinds of environments, the way to capture an idea, the way to capture a moment in time, like a photograph, So those kinds of things are important for an illustrator. And if you start creating comics and you stick with it, you're going to have all the skills needed to be a great illustrator.
Well, honestly, you can become even a great artist in general, like even including photography, because with a comic you have to figure out how to capture an entire story, but basically using snapshots. And if that's the case, that's the same with photography. It's the same with just painting a single image. Like you have to show something in one scene that expresses an entire thought, feeling, action, whatever it is you're trying to express. And then you have to do that multiple times in a comic.
Yeah, and like it can teach you even things that you didn't think that you were good at, and you can see it as a strength now. Like now I feel so comfortable, and I feel like in my zone when I'm storyboarding. Like that, I feel like that's my niche. So if I ever did want to do something else in the industry, that would be a career path for me. That could be something I could, I have a strong portfolio right now. I can take it somewhere and try to get a job as a storyboard artist, and I would be happy with that, So it teaches you some things that about yourself and about your process and your strengths and weaknesses. So I would definitely say if you're coming up right now, keep making comics, do it as much as you can. Like I said, draw every day. If you're a writer, just try and look for avenues for you to publish your work on blogs, publish your work on different websites, write an ebook, write articles, try to reach out to different, people on the come up, maybe if they're looking for a writer to write, even something short like a 1,000-word blog or something like that, just take on challenges and start getting your work out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I got that pop-up again. I'm trying to see what that's so small.
Getting a really good look at your hairline right now.
All right, that's awesome. Let's see. I'm just gonna go down here. What is that? Hangouts will ask you something decision on each browser. That's so weird. I don't even know how to get rid of it.
Yeah.
Either way, it still seems to be getting sound. It's just like it has this pop up right in the middle of the screen. I can't figure out what it's doing there.
All right, new topic of the podcast: how to get rid of the pop up.
Yeah, that's the key to life. The pop up.
And learn
My key
more about
advice for that
this.
is to get an IT person who knows more about it than I do to give you advice.
Yeah, right. This is ridiculous.
I wish they didn't get rid of the thing.
I know. Yeah.
Hangouts on air, because that was super
Google
easy.
keeps getting rid of stuff that's super awesome.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, so that was is a whole different format, huh?
Yeah.
You guys did the last podcast.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, literally, it was like we were doing it July 31st or 30th,
Yeah.
something like that, and it
then
was
like
August
August
1st. Everything's gonna change. We're like, oh, that's good. Second podcast, we gotta learn a whole new system. That's
you
awesome.
can use Skype, but I don't like using Skype.
It worked out pretty well too, so that's unfortunate because that whole interview worked out really well.
Yeah, but I think what we can do is we can cut this interview now, but we can keep chatting for a second. We'll do some afterthoughts.